top story at this hour. Probe into the Jharkhand plane crash revealed that the air ambulance that crashed yesterday did not have a black box. This may become a problem for authorities as they try to piece together the cause of the crash. While civil aviation rules do not mandate cockpit voice recorders or flight data recorders for aircraft weighing below 5,700 kilograms, the investigation into what caused the crash is expected to now be impacted. Officials will now be relying on data recorded by air traffic control, the analysis of the wreckage as well as eyewitness accounts of the crash. All right, so the latest hurdle now as far as that Jharkhand plane crash is concerned, the air ambulance did not have a black box, which may be a problem for authorities as they try to piece together as to what really caused that crash. My colleague Sabyasachi joining us with more details. Sabyasachi, the authorities will now necessarily have to look at not just the ATC record, but also the wreckage and eyewitness accounts in absence of a black box.
Well, that's right. It's going to be extremely challenging for the AAIB right now to investigate what exactly went wrong, because there was no black box. Now, as per the guidelines which has been laid down by the DGCA, aircraft, if it is less than 5,700 kgs, it is not mandatory for the flight to have a CVR or a FDR. Now, the CVR is the cockpit voice recorder and the FDR is the flight data recorder. Now, there are certain rules, because what it says that the airworthiness certificate, if it was issued before 1990, then it was issued after 1990, then you can have the FDR, or if airworthiness certificate is issued after 2016, you can have a CVR. But since this particular aircraft got its airworthiness certificate in the 90s, 80s, and that was the reason why it did not have the black box. And that is the reason why it's going to be extremely challenging for the AIB right now to investigate and determine what exactly went wrong. Now, what we are learning from the sources that the AIB will try to understand what exactly went wrong with the recordings that is there with the air traffic control, as well as with the examination of the wreckage, as well as the statement of the eyewitnesses. So the AIB will rely on these aspects as far as their investigation is concerned. Meanwhile, it's going to be a challenging investigation as far as the AIB is concerned, because already a lot of questions are being raised, because there has been certain allegations which has been leveled against Redbird. Yesterday also we had seen that the AIB team, one team which went to Ranchi to investigate the wreckage site. Another team went to the Redbird office here in the national capital, and they have seized all the related documents to this particular aircraft, whether it was a maintenance record, records of the rostering of the pilots. So all these documents will be analyzed by the AIB.
Let's quickly also understand the role of Redbird here, Sabya, because the aircraft, which is a Beechcraft C-90 operated by Redbird Airways, took off from Jharkhand's capital Ranchi at just about 10 past 7 in the evening, and literally 23 minutes after taking off, it crashed. It lost contact with the Kolkata ATC as well. What is the preliminary investigation telling us? What could have resulted in that crash?
Well, the preliminary investigation, what we are learning from the sources within the DGCA and the AIB, that the preliminary reason could be because of the weather condition. There was heavy rain, there was thunderstorm, because of which the crash could have happened. And what we learned from the sources is that the previous flights of Air India as well as the Indigo experienced turbulence because of the weather condition. So the AIB says that this could be one of the reasons because of which the crash happened, but the AIB says that they are not certain at this point, because it's just based on their preliminary assessment, but they have to assess all the data which has been recorded by the air traffic control, as well as they will talk with the eyewitnesses, as well as they have been examining the wreckage site. And meanwhile, the rescue operation was also troubled because it was a difficult terrain. The car, even the rescue ambulances could not go to the particular location because of the terrain difficulties. So there are a lot of aspects coming right now, but the AIB sources tell us that it could happen because of the weather condition. But they say that this is a preliminary assessment by the AIB, but they are carrying out the investigation into this matter. Because if you look at Redbird, it had a history with crash, because not only in 2026 but just few months before this Jharkhand accident, there was another crash involving the Redbird aircraft, and also in 2023 two flights crashed in Baramati, after which there was this investigation which was launched by the AIB, and AIB also had leveled serious allegation against Redbird, stating that before the AIB team arrived, the Redbird team took the SD drive as well as the CCTV drive before the AIB team had reached the spot. Post that, temporary suspension was also handed over to the Redbird.
All right, stay with us, Sabyasachi. Also joining us on the show is Wing Commander Alok Sahai. Wing Commander, the recent spur in incidents with respect to non-scheduled flight operators has also got DGCA worried. It does appear right now that some of these, non-scheduled flight operators, non-commercial flight operators are perhaps not having enough checks and balances in place, or not adhering to the law of the land, and therefore there is time now to tighten noose around them.
Yeah, Shweta, you are very right. I agree with you fully that in recent times we have seen that these private operators, they are not adhering to the standard procedures which must be followed for the safety of the aircraft and the passengers. Because you see what happens in India, what we are seeing now as a trend, that DGCA and accident investigation bodies, they get activated once an aircraft crashes. What is required here is that we have to pull up our socks. These people have to pull up their socks and have a tighter control on all these non-scheduled operators. Why not regular checks are being done on these operators? Even if the flight has been undertaken successfully, are they checking whether they followed their standard procedures or not? What are the deviations they did from the standard procedure? This should be checked at regular intervals, and they should tighten their noose over these private operators. Otherwise, these kinds of incidents will keep happening. And I can tell you what would have caused this incident, because as it is known that in that sector, the weather was bad. And one Indigo flight and another commercial flight had also asked for a left deviation from the Calcutta ATC. So it is known, and this aircraft, ill-fated aircraft, also had sought a deviation from the weather. So it is obvious that this weather was visible to the aircraft. The weather radar was probably functioning. To what extent, that is yet to be ascertained. This is a matter of investigation. But it sought a deviation from the radar, from the weather. What happens, these operators at times, because I have some experience in the aviation sector, they take some, risk. That is dangerous. That sector, Chatra district, is a very difficult terrain. It's a hilly terrain with a lot of jungles. Weather must have gone bad. And while negotiating the weather, if you do not negotiate the weather at a safer distance and try to do a shortcut, you may land up in encountering bad weather conditions where the turbulence might have caused such a deviation of altitude that this aircraft crashed. Absolutely. This is what my presumption are.
All right, I think aviation regulator is worried also because, remember, it has come literally weeks after that VSR Ventures charter flight also crashed, killing Maharashtra's Deputy Chief Minister. So as I mentioned earlier, there's been a spurt in such incidents. So the aviation regulator now saying it should be made mandatory for charter operators to not just disclose the age of the aircraft, but also the experience of the pilot. Because, some of these factors are extremely crucial, Wing Commander, when it comes to operating a flight in a difficult terrain.
Shweta, I would a little disagree here, because just checking the records and checking the experience of the pilot is not sufficient. The pilot, as in the case of the crash, Baramati crash, the pilot was very experienced. What is required to be checked is, are they following the norms? Are we just following the cases when the accident takes place? Why not have a regular checks? What are the standard deviations? What are the deviations they are resorting to from the standard practices? That needs
Wing
to
Commander,
be
are you saying
regularly checked.
mandatory disclosures are not enough? There needs to be more frequent checks of these private operators?
Yes, yes, because mandatory disclosures are at times doctored. This is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, but my concern is, do we even have the bandwidth, sir, to go on frequent checks of every private flight operator in this country? Do DGCA have enough men on ground? Do they have enough manpower to go for these frequent checks? And which is one of the reasons why the regulators in this country, many regulators, not just aviation regulator, fail to do their duty. That's because they just don't have enough boots on the ground.
Shweta, you are very correct. You are very right. The manpower is less. We do not have that kind of a bandwidth to have regular checks on these aviators. But the government will have to pull up their socks, and we will have to increase the bandwidth. This is my point.
All right, let me also quickly get in my colleague Sabyasachi, who's been patiently waiting. Sabyasachi, so as far as frequent checks is concerned, we don't know whether that's going to happen or not, and we acknowledge here that perhaps people on ground are not necessarily enough to go on frequent checks in order to ensure that some of these private operators and charter operators, comply with the law of the land. But as a matter of fact, there are strict penalties now that the DGCA is talking of. It has said that if the charter operators fail to comply with the norms, they will face strict penalties. They're going to face penalties for non-compliance and could even face suspension of license. And I think that's a big deterrent in itself.
Well, that's right. See here, the DGC also need to step up because there have been multiple replies which has come in Lok Sabha as well as in Rajya Sabha, where the Ministry of Civil Aviation itself has said that the DGCA, the Airport Authority of India, all of them are understaffed. They are working with 50% capacity. So over the years, there has been no serious attempt as far as the DGCA or the Airport Authority of India is concerned, or the ATC is concerned, to fill up these gaps. Now we had seen that after the Baramati accident, we had seen that the DGCA ordered for a special audit, and in this special audit the name of Redbird was also there. Now the major question arises, why didn't the DGCA ask for a special audit before? Why do they have to wait for every single time when the crash happened? Then they would decide to go to the offices of each and every aircraft, seize the related documents and then examine through all the documents and then act on it. Now yesterday we have seen that DGCA acted on VSR Ventures, where they have grounded 4 of its aircraft, saying that these aircraft and the VSR Ventures did not comply with the DGCA rules and regulation, and that is the reason why this step has been taken. And also it has been made mandatory from the DGCA that these particular non-scheduled airlines and aircraft, all their details regarding their age, regarding the maintenance record has to be put up in their website, and if they fail to do so, strict action will be taken against them. But year after year we see that similar accident happened. In yesterday itself 3 incidents happened. Now if you talk about Redbird had crashes in the year 2021, 2022, 2023, 2025 and 2026 as well. And in 2025 there was 2023 there was 2 crashes in Baramati itself. Now the DGCA itself has to step up. The regulator needs to step up. If there is vacancy, they need to fill it up fast, because time and again the onus clearly lies on the regulator, because at the end of the day it is the job of the regulator to make sure that all the rules and regulations and protocols are being followed by the scheduled and the non-scheduled airlines, and make sure that the rules and regulations are followed.
So rules and regulations are not just promulgated but also followed. That's the job of the regulator. And in this case, I think questions are being asked of regulator, and rightly so. Wing Commander, before I let you go, in the current Jharkhand Air Ambulance case, there is no black box because there was no black box to begin with. It's not mandatory for aircraft weighing below 5,700 kilograms. Perhaps do you believe that that law should also change now, given how smaller aircraft are more prone to accident, more susceptible to accident, and there's no way to find out what caused the accident or what was the last minute prior to the accident in absence of a black box or a recorder?
Yes, Shweta, that is true that aircraft below that kg category is not mandatory to carry the black box, but there are some provisions in international aviation that some other rudimentary and a smaller type of data recording devices can be carried by these aircraft. So
But
DGCA should think on
can be
those
leaves a
lines.
lot of room for should we or should we not. Can be
No.
is not.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So Shweta, my point is that DGCA should seriously think of making it mandatory, especially for the aviators who are carrying commercial activities, carrying passengers. Like for helicopters and all, it is very difficult because if you go to helicopters, a smaller helicopter, they cannot carry this black box always. And as per international norms also, it is not mandatory for such a smaller aircraft to carry because of the cost factor, because of the load factor. Also, there are many things, many issues in this. But we can think of installing some lighter equipment. There are lighter equipment available where some recordings can be done. These are in practice in some other countries, which can be thought of. Yeah, that is my point.